and we are about to start. I'm just checking if everyone is... You need to put your headsets on. And there's more here if anyone needs. Very good. So, welcome to this UN REDD event. Do we have the slide with the event title? No? Okay, we don't. So this is the event on agriculture and forestry innovation, how to connect the two systems for scaling up ambitions towards COP30 and beyond. The event is organized by the UN REDD program, which is a partnership of FAO, UNDP and UNEP. We support more than 60 countries delivering on climate solutions. And we're very happy to bring this topic today. It's a small group that we have here, but it's an important group. And the topic is of absolute importance. I am Mario Boccucci. I'm the head of the UN REDD program secretariat. And I'm also an agronomist by training, a tropical agronomist. And when I studied, tropical agronomy more than 40 years ago, the connection between agriculture and forest was not really there. It was only, halfway through my career with international organizations when that connection started to happen. And I remember for me that started to happen at the turn of the millennium. It was the year 2000 when I had moved to Indonesia, one of the biggest countries in terms of forest. And I was given the task, I was with the World Bank at the time, to really connect the forest and the agriculture agenda. Agriculture was the main driver of deforestation in Indonesia at the time. And so the time had come to connect the two systems. So this is what this event is about. Connecting and deepening the connection between the agriculture and the forest system. The objective, for those of you who have followed a number of other events today, is to halt and reverse deforestation by 2030. This was an objective adopted at COP29 last year, and it's our North Star. We know that in order to get there, we have to work beyond the forest system, and the agriculture system is a key system for us to engage with. So today we're going to speak about sustainable transformation of the agri-food system so that it delivers concurrently on climate, on biodiversity, on development. We're going to speak about innovative financial solutions that are going to help us get there. And we will explore challenges, lessons learned, and solutions. We will do this with a very nice group of colleagues, friends, champions from the UN REDD family and beyond. We might have be connected with Rosalind from Accra. Rosalind, if you are there, let us know. Rosalind is the director for climate change at the Forestry Commission of Ghana, and she's also a member of the UN REDD Executive Board. We have here with us Tung, Nguyen Tan Tung. He's the senior official in the Forestry Product and Trade and Processing Division of the Department of Forestry of Vietnam. Thank you, Tung, for being here with us. Colombia and Ecuador were also very keen to join. It wasn't possible, but we have a recorded video message from them. And in Songdo, we have Ben Vickers from the Green Climate Fund also connected. So it's a group, it's a very good group of people to brainstorm and to really find out practically how can we bring together the forest and agriculture systems to deliver solutions. What we're going to do, just to set out a few key themes that we want to follow today. I'm first going to hear from FAO and then from UNDP. From FAO, it's my pleasure to invite Julia Wolf. She is the Global Manager of SCALA, the Scaling Up Climate Ambition of Land Use and Agriculture through nationally determined contribution and national adaptation plans, FAO. And she'll also, Serena Fortuna is not here with us. She is the member of the UN REDD management group and also the team leader of Halting Deforestation and Degradation FAO in Rome. She's connected with us. So with that, Julia, if you can please share some initial thinking that we can use through the event. You want to speak from?
Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for inviting me to co-open the event. I think, Mario, you're an excellent innovator, and it's so interesting to see where you're coming from and how many years you have been passionately working about this topic. So I'm very curious to see what the session brings about in terms of thinking and sharing innovative practices. My name is Julia Wolf, and I have been introduced, and I'd like to pass the very, very warm regards from Serena Fortuna from HQ. She can't be with us, but she's online, so she's with us in virtually, so to say. So I think also I'd like to say it's actually quite good to have this side event and the topic setting just while COP29 is concluding, since when you conclude, you already think about what will happen at the next COP. There are a lot of discussions on agenda setting, not only for the June session, but also for the COP30. So I think it's a great opportunity to exchange. So I'd like to make a couple of points. We start with this triple crisis, which Mario already mentioned, and there are three aspects that we have to consider, right? So we need to think about how to increase agriculture production while not inducing deforestation by 50%. We need to reduce emissions by 2/3. So at the moment, we work with a number here in the agri-food system space, at least with 30%. And 23% of the greenhouse gas emissions from the sector are actually from land use and agriculture production, 30 overall when you look at the whole food chain. And then, of course, the question is how to halt and reverse biodiversity and forest loss. And so here, I think one of the key messages to translate is that FAO, in collaboration with UNDP and UNEP through the UN REDD program, is really thinking that in some way we are at the new crossroad where the shift, and then there's a shift happening in the narrative, and we want to hear more about that in terms of joining collective efforts. And that would also, of course, include technical support, but also the needed building up the ownership and the needed political will to transform agri-food systems. So in terms, what does it mean? Because it's still very generic language. No? So there's this point in terms of decoupling commodity production from deforestation, which is not easy, right? And this would then lead to regenerated forest on abandoned land. But it's really essential to better serve people and the planet to really look into decoupling possibilities. The other point to mention is the reduction of deforestation and promoting sustainable agri-food systems that are part of the solution, and that's also in view of the SDGs. No? So maybe for many years we thought about separate things, but now the SDGs, and also partly this COP is all about the global goal on adaptation. So I think we really need to think across the different negotiation tracks in terms of how to really ensure that adaptation, and that includes forestry, of course, can make progress over time. In FAO, And this is what partly our forestry colleagues do. Whatever is discussed here at COP29 or at the COPs, the UNFC process is brought back to the FAO system. And there's a FAO committee on forest and agriculture where all the representatives from the countries, it's an intergovernmental organization. So this is where we feed what we hear here back to the FAO committees. And so it's a really important moment for FAO for that. We see governments, but also civil society, really as great stakeholder, as agent of change in terms of opportunities to really drive this positive change for forests and integrated landscapes. And ultimately also, and that's a growing interest since Glasgow, but also before, on the question how to work with private sector and what kind of business models do exist to really induce this positive change. And this is where the innovation discussion needs to take place, not because obviously business needs to turn around the penny, right? So there need to be a return on investment. Hence, we're looking for that. But it shouldn't be just money-driven. It should be really, in a sense, what is also very prominent here in terms of the social inclusion, the social justice, and recognizing that in the landscapes we work, there's often a lot of people left behind, and they lack the advocacy, right? So this is where programs like UN REDD play an extremely important role in terms of creating models that then can be also accepted and driven forward by governments or by people in the capitals in terms of models that would change rural people's livelihood and unlock opportunities, and that includes even legal aspects like tenure, indigenous people's rights, etc., etc. So I'm already getting close to the closing. So I think, what we really look for is maybe to hear more country voices and really examples, and there will be some videos shown on how to really move the whole agenda, and also how in relation to the Paris Agreement, right? How to make the forest and both the mitigation and the adaptation side of the indices more prominent. FAO actually has launched a global analysis that includes forest and agroforestry dimensions here at COP 2 days ago at the Food, Agriculture and Water Day. And it's kind of a baseline, right? Where FAO took stock on all the countries' contributions, and it's also a point of action which can lead to more implementation. I think this is something where kind of the forest and the agriculture and the water community, like everybody, like the governments who manage the natural assets in countries, need to come together. It's really an opportunity to see how to move the NDCs and also the national adaptation plans to not just an ambition discussion, but actually to an implementation and a finance point, because this is how we need to make progress. It needs to go hand in hand, the ambition discussion and the implementation progress. So I'd leave it here.
So many thanks, many thanks, Julia. Very useful. And just before I go to the next speaker, just to highlight 2 points that I really would like to take through this discussion. One is this notion that we need to do concurrently, decouple, but also promote what you refer to as the agri-food system that are part of the solution, right? This is not a fight. No, you are bad, we are good. These are processes that have to go hand in hand. And I think it was also very interesting how the FAO, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the institution that works on agriculture and production systems, has already created an institutional space to bring these two streams together. So these to me are two very important, if you want, data points that we want to carry out as we continue the discussion today. With that, I'd like to invite Claudia Ortiz, She is from the United Nations Development Program, the Bureau for Policy and Program Support. Thank you very much, Claudia.
Thank you, Mario. And thank you, everybody. It is definitely an honor to be here, be part of this UN REDD event. I was just actually at the high-level roundtable for nature and climate. As you know, this is taking a lot of discussion lately in both COPs, in COP16 in Cali and out here, how to really align, biodiversity, nature, and climate agendas. And forests and agriculture are for sure some key sectors and biomes that will allow for this integration. And I think my colleague Julia mentioned the narrative shift, and I think this is a narrative shift that we're seeing. So I think timely to have this event and this discussion. The global agricultural system is expanding its terrestrial footprint, particularly into forest ecosystems, to meet the growing demand for food, a demand that is expected to double in the next 50 years. Coupled with that, over 80% of the global deforestation results from the expansion and mismanagement of agricultural land to produce commodities such as cattle, wood, palm oil, soy, cacao, etc. And this is happening around the world. Addressing these issues is imperative, and we must realign agricultural production and food systems with the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the climate and biodiversity targets. And I would like to focus on some positive examples that we will see featured here, many of which are supported by UNDP and FAO. First, Ghana's policies and practices on sustainable cocoa and shea butter production are driving tangible ecosystem restoration, emission reductions, and improving livelihoods, particularly of women. Second, in Colombia, we have remarkable leadership that we saw from the country at COP16, and this is reflected with actions on the ground. By reinvesting in results-based financing, Colombia is effectively leveraging investments in sustainable commodity supply chains, creating mutual benefits for forestry, agriculture, and also for people and peace, the peace agenda. In Vietnam, the world's second largest coffee producer after Brazil, they are progressing in sustainable coffee production, contributing to halting deforestation and achieving the country's nationally determined contribution. Lastly, Ecuador. Ecuador, UNDP, and local producers, and Lavazza, an Italian coffee company, and other companies are exemplifying the potential of aligning public and corporate policies to drive a sustainable future, in this case with no deforestation coffee. So it is clear that there are successful models of public-private collaboration and a business model and an economic case to be made of integrative approaches in the productive sector that is also aligned with market-based regulations on deforestation-free commodities. As we move forward to COP30 in Belém, the focus will definitely be on tropical forests. And this is where, again, it will be timely to demonstrate integration. One such example we're taking very seriously in UNDP is policy coherence to be able to support the alignment of NDCs and MBSAPs. These processes should really build upon governance frameworks, indigenous peoples and local communities' participation, monitoring, reporting, social and environmental safeguards, and results-based financing. Through the Climate Promise, UNDP is coordinating with the UN system to make sure that the next round of NDCs, NDCs 3.0, are at the heart of development plans and reflect this integrated approach. So at the UN REDD program, we remain committed to supporting these critical efforts, and we are welcome and very excited to hear from the inspiring ideas and actions that will be shared today, and we hope this can be replicated and expanded in other countries and regions through several partners here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Claudia. If you will also like to take a seat. And yes, just to reflect on three take-home messages from the very useful remarks you made. The first one is, again, this point of alignment, integration. That not only it needs to happen, alignment of agriculture and forest, but it's already starting to happen. And that was, your second point. You gave us very good practical examples of where that is happening and the impact that it is having on livelihoods, on social inclusion, and how this is also driving the private sector and public-private partnerships into this space. Again, I think this is very important for us as we get into this conversation to have these data points, these reflections, because they signal that not only it's needed, but it can be done. And I think finally, of course, the reminder of the NDCs, because what goes into an NDC goes into the DNA of development, as your administrator, the UNDP administrator likes to say. And so it's important that we see this alignment reflected in the NDCs. So this was, an initial round of reflection that we wanted to share, put at your service. This is what we see from the work we do from the United Nations system when we work on agriculture and forest, and we support governments, stakeholders, to reach their ambitions. And their ambitions are very ambitious, as it has been said, is in terms of transforming the agriculture system and make them sustainable and halt and reverse deforestation. Now, in the second part of this discussion, we're going to hear from the countries. How do they see this agenda? What challenges are they facing? What lessons have they learned? And what solutions have they been able to deliver and are planning to do more and deliver more in the future? So for this, we're going to hear from Ghana, in case we have Rosalind connected online, and if someone from IT could let me know. It's a thumb up, so maybe we can, yeah? So we're going to have, nope. Well, we may have Rosalind. So Rosalind, welcome. You probably are able to see me. I have to turn to you to see you. You might have been seated in this very chair. And only a few days ago, we are in the Forest Pavilion. There's a very good group that has joined us today to really look at agriculture and forestry synergies. And Ghana has been at the forefront on both, and also in terms of accessing finance. So we really would like to hear from you. As I mentioned earlier, Rosalind is the Director for Climate Change at the Forestry Agency of Ghana, and she's a champion. She's also a member of the UN REDD Executive Board. So Rosalind, over to you for your insights in terms of the challenges, the lessons learned, and the solutions that Ghana can share on agriculture and forestry synergies. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mario. And yes, I was in the Forest Pavilion. I think that was my last event before leaving Baku. I had to come back home on Monday, and so I'm sad I couldn't meet you in person before coming, but thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Serena for having me on this event. And I really acknowledge the initial statements that have already been made by Julia and Claudia. Thank you for the mention, Claudia, on the work that Ghana is doing, as well as that for other countries. So as earlier statements have already reiterated, and as Mario, you also mentioned, a while back, we all realized that the nexus between forestry and agriculture is one that is very important, and we cannot address deforestation and forest degradation without looking at this nexus critically for win-win solutions. And as you said, it shouldn't be a fight. We can all be in a space where the two sectors are able to thrive and thrive so well, because they are all very important sectors. The agricultural sector has what it is doing. For example, a country like Ghana that is largely agrarian, agric is very important to our people, our local communities, and particularly to women. And with population increases, the whole conversation also on food security is very essential. Now, interestingly, the agric lands need also the forests to thrive. The forest creates the microclimate for the agricultural lands. So without the forest, you're not going to have agricultural productivity being sustainable. And this is one of the things that we realized very early in the readiness phase of our REDD Plus programming, where we addressed, or we were fishing out what the drivers of deforestation were. Agriculture came out as one of the top drivers of deforestation, if not the single one, across the entire country in any of the landscapes that we considered. Now, so that led us to come up with REDD+ strategy that has programs that focus on key and essential commodities. Claudia mentioned some already, cocoa, shea, these are essential commodities for Ghana. And so our REDD+ strategy is created around these commodities. And the strategy is that we promote the sustainable production of these commodities using climate-smart practices, whilst we also restore our degraded forest land. Now, using a multi-stakeholder approach is very, very important in this process. When we built our readiness structures, we had a national REDD+ working group that brought together all the different state agencies and also civil society organizations, local communities within the landscapes of interest. Because Agric is not a place that the forestry sector has a jurisdiction over. And so if we are going to have any success in there, you must be talking to the actual players who also have drafted their policies over time and have a particular level of ambition of what they want to see within the agri sector. Now, this multi-stakeholder working group helped us to come together to define what kind of strategies we can implement within our forest landscapes. For some countries, you have agriculture being largely done as plantations. For Ghana, it is not the case. We have most of our agric lands nestled within our forests, so it's a mosaic land. And most of our farmlands, particularly for cocoa farmers, are smallholder farmers. So 2-hectare farms, 3-hectare farms, and they are just within the tens and corners of forests. This means that any particular intervention that would help us promote productivity must also help us stop encroachment into the adjoining forest. Because the question is, once you promote productivity, there is no guarantee that you're going to stop encroachment into forest areas, because ultimately there's increase in income. So this level of stakeholder engagement and also multi-stakeholder approach helped us address a number of the challenges that we would have encountered if we had gone to the ground without doing these consultations. And so at the moment, we have 2 key agricultural or agric forest programs that are thriving so well. One supported by the World Bank, which is actually a results-based payment program for our cocoa landscape, that farmers have come together and collectively over 3 years, from 2019 to 2021, we have demonstrated emission reductions that have been verified by a third party, VVB, and we have received payments from the Carbon Fund for this. Now, what this has meant is that over 16 years of engaging in REDD+, now communities see the tangibility of this conversation that we've been having about a commodity that is not tangible. Largely, carbon is not seen anywhere. If we talk about climate change, whether mitigation or adaptation, it's about efforts to work on reducing carbon dioxide emissions. But nobody sees this carbon dioxide. But finally, by the payment of these results-based actions, communities have realized that even though we don't see this particular intangible commodity, we are now seeing the payment for we trying to avert this commodity from being emitted the more. And for us, it hasn't been that difficult, particularly with our farmers, apart from the length of years we have had to engage, because the farmers were already experiencing climate impacts. So most of our farmers, and even at the moment as we speak, because what I'm talking about are results in pocketed areas. We have a very big landscape where there is opportunity to scale up and to do more. We have changes in our rainfall patterns, and most of our rain agriculture is rain-fed agriculture. We don't have large irrigation mechanisms that farmers are using. Just last August, we had 1 full month of drought within our savanna landscape, where that's the second project I was talking about, that is financed by the Green Climate Fund, where 1 full month that we were expecting to plant, there was no rain. So the climate impacts already are helping us in advancing these solutions that we have already tabled in a very well-structured 20-year strategy. But there's a lot more that needs to be done, particularly as climate awareness is now very much known by so many actors. When we started the Red Class conversation, most of our agencies were not really into climate change as it is. Now we come for the COP, and we have so many of our sector agencies, even local communities, being within the climate space. That means that there could also be possible interference based on the level of understanding and also possible programs that could conflict. So at every point in time, we still go back to the use of our working groups. And what has also helped us in another vein, as I bring my submission to an end, is the fact that our NDC documents reflect what we are doing on the ground. So all these programs that I've talked about are contained in our NDC 2.0. Our NDC process is very consultative. We have the Ministry of Environment leading different working groups from the different agencies. We come together, we bring on board our ideas. So everybody is aware that this is going to take place here and there, and we all understand our institutional roles and capacities and what else needs to be done. So there are challenges, but these approaches that we have adopted, consulting, using multi-stakeholder platforms right from the start, and also building this into our NDCs, which is by far our biggest climate development policy planning tool, is also helping us achieve success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosalind. You're probably not able to hear, but the audience here is clapping, and we now have a full room. And thank you, for your testimony, which I think spanned from the political insights all the way to the operational one. I have a number of things that I want to tease out so that we can keep reflecting. One has got to do with that when forests meet agriculture, then the value of protecting and restoring forest is no longer only a global value, it's also a very local value. I think, Rosalind, you spoke about the microclimate for agriculture, that in Ghana, being all rain-fed agriculture, is of primary importance. So when you consider also agriculture, when you connect to the agriculture, it becomes also a very concrete agenda. Which was your other point, right? Payments make this agenda even more concrete because it turns what you refer to as an impalpable asset into something very concrete. And finally, the whole approach through a multi-stakeholder consultations. It's a multi-stakeholder approach that is multiplied by 2. For those who have been working on forest, there's a lot of consultations going on in the forest domain, and then there's even more consultations that have got to take place for the agriculture, address the agriculture domain. And that's needed, and we have to be prepared, and we have to be prepared to make the effort to support those efforts and to finance those efforts. I'm saying this because this came up also in another panel. And the example of Ghana with a multi-stakeholder working group, I think it's an idea to really keep in mind. Again, thank you again, Rosalind. We're now moving to another country. We travel east to Vietnam. And Mr. Tung, if you would like to come here and sit, we have you with us. Mr. Tung is the senior official at the Forestry Department of Vietnam. Vietnam is another country that has been really at the forefront of both forests and agriculture and accessing climate finance and also getting ready for regulated commodity markets. So we'd like to hear your perspective on the agriculture and forest connection. Thank you.
Microphone. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tung. I'm the senior office from the Department of Forestry of Vietnam. And today I would like to share with you with some of the progress up to reducing the forest, reduce the forest deforestation and the demonstrate in the emission reduction through its REDD plus and the progress in the timber and timber product to adapt with the EUDR regulation. The first thing we see that Vietnam has made the significant stride to reducing the deforestation and the demonstrating emission reduction through its REDD flag efforts and the country commitment to the sustainable practice, particularly in the sector like forestry and agriculture, including the non-timber forest product. And the EUDR regulation community like timber product and coffee and rubber. For the REDD plug implementation, the Vietnam has made the significant stride to reducing and demonstration and emission reduction through its REDD flag effort since 2009. Vietnam has active participate in the REDD flag initiative supported by the UN REDD program, phase 1 and phase 2. And currently, Vietnam is involved in the regional UN REDD program, where the FAO provides substantial technical assistance to help the country assess the climate finance, including the result basement for the carbon credit. For an example of that is Vietnam plan to transfer to the LIP about the 5.15 million tons of the COI of the carbon CO2 equivalent emission reduction from the forest in the Center Highland and the South Center in the South Center Coast in the period of the 2022 to the 2026, and the own contribution of the created carbon is the entire credit of the transfer to LIP will be counted towards the Vietnam's NDC. And for the legal framework, Vietnam has established a legal and the regulatory framework to support sustainable forest management and climate change mitigation, a key milestone of the National REDD Plug Action Program approved by the Prime Minister in the 2017. That's supported by the UN REDD Forest Program. And that program with the Vietnam's water national strategy, including the Sustainable Forest Development Program and the National Strategy for the Climate Change and the National Strategy for the Green Growth. This integrates approach to ensure that the REDD plus contribute to the national environment security and the hunger elimination and the poverty reduction. Other thing that we have the forest landscape restoration. The Vietnam has invested significantly in large-scale forest reduction program, including the planting tree and restoring degraded area for degraded forest area and various policy and the legal framework, such as a national target program on the afforestation and the protection of the forest, and the law on the forest underpin this commitment. This policy have provides the necessary framework for the implementing forest landscape restoration initiative. And for that, in the sustainable forest management, at this moment, Vietnam has 0.5 million hectare of the forest with the certification of the forest management, sustainable forest management, including the FFC and PFC certification. That meet the target of Vietnam in the period to 2021 to the 2026, and we plan to get more than 1 million hectare of forest with the certification by the 2030. And we also aim in the 2030, 100% of the area forest that owned or managed by the organization have to get the certification. One more thing that to implement and help the company in Vietnam in the timber and timber product adapt with the EUDR. Now we, based on the requirement from the EUDR, we are in developing the guideline for the wood sector and how to adapt with the EUDR regulation. And we have some responsibility with to respond with the GIC about the forest mapping, because the forest mapping of the GIC is not exactly like the current situation in Vietnam. Based on that data, the recovery rates, the forest recover more than 67%. That's not. And then now we will try to the mapping, to the building the data on the forest mapping, and the public forest mapping boundary, and then we can compare for the chasing with the product with the compliant with the EUDR. And we will continue to complete the law system in the forestry, and we have some dissemination and then training for the company how to adapt with the EUDR. Here is some information about the implementation of the red flag and the progress in how to adapt with the EUDR of Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tung. For me, this was really an impressive opportunity, almost to have an X-ray view of what it means in a country to connect agriculture and forest. Vietnam is one of, as you all know, probably one of the thriving industries in Vietnam is based on timber products. And so, as Tung was saying, it is important, and Vietnam has engaged in many different streams of work related to REDD+ and accessing the finance, including from public-private partnerships, related to landscape restoration, related to trade, and accessing markets that are placing restrictions and regulations. And so I think what you shared with us for me was a very powerful illustration of the efforts that a country has to go through to go beyond business as usual. Because we will all have to go beyond business as usual. And so being aware that it's not simple, it's not complex, but having the evidence of how this gets done on a day-by-day basis, as we've heard in the case of Vietnam, in the case of Ghana, I think should give us not only the hope, but the resolve to continue to do what we're doing. So thank you very much again, Tung, for a very, very enlightening presentation. Now, we started a little bit late, and I know that the next session, which I'm also happy to moderate, will only start in 20 minutes. And I see colleagues in the room seems interested. I would think that a little change in program before we, because we don't have Colombia and Ecuador in the room, we have two very interesting videos. But we also have Ben Vickers, if he's still connected, if IT could show to me. We have Ben Vickers in Songdo from the Green Climate Fund. Okay, and so Ben Vicker is the senior specialist who has been working on forest and result-based payments for a very long time. And so Ben, if you are connected and you can show on screen, I would jump straight to you. I also know, it's very late where you are. And so thank you very much for staying with us until now. If you can share, two things perhaps. What have we learned from the result-based payments program of the Green Climate Fund so far? And what type of innovations do you see for the future, building on the very recently approved Green Climate Fund policy decision on mainstreaming forest? So what do you see in terms of innovation, and also in terms of innovation specifically to connect agriculture and forest, and to bring the finance to really accelerate the transition to sustainable agriculture? So Ben, I think we see, well, it looks like you are connected, but we don't see you.
My camera's turned on, Mario, so
now we can see you. Very good. Thank you, Ben. So now you're speaking to the audience here in the Forest Pavilion in Baku. And you have the floor, if you heard me. Over to you, a few minutes to share your insights. Thank you.
Yeah, Mario, thanks. I heard you very clearly. And thanks to FEO and UN Program for inviting us. I'm actually in Bangkok, so I'm not quite as late as in Songdo. So it's okay to be going a bit late. And I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I flew back from Baku yesterday. But yeah, it's been really interesting to listen to the other speakers. And there's a lot of points, particularly from Rosalind and from Tung, that they've already laid out a lot of the points that I was planning to make anyway. So hopefully we can go through this relatively quickly. You mentioned the policy that was approved by the GCF board of B40. Just very briefly, what that was to mainstream results-based payments for REDD+ into our full programming cycle. Prior to this, we've only had one pilot funding window of $500 million between 2018 and 2022. And so this policy essentially re-emphasizes our mandate, the GCF's mandate that was set out in the Paris Agreement itself, to be one of the key sources of results-based finance for REDD+. So it's the board re-emphasizing, reinstating what we already have in our mandate to do. But more than that, I think it's important to emphasize what's happened before over the last 17 years, in fact, since the REDD+ discussion started in Bali in the COP in 2007. And one of the, I think, most important aspects of this whole train of work was underlined by Rosalind, I think, in her experience in Ghana, and indeed by Tuong in Vietnam. There's been a lot of work done at country level, and there's been a lot of investment through particularly UN REDD and the World Bank's Forest Carbon Partnership Facility in many countries in facilitating the consultations, the bottom-up analysis and policy support, strategic development, the capacity development over many years that has resulted in quite a sophisticated and cross-sectoral approach to addressing the land-based issues related to climate change mitigation and indeed adaptation. So in no other sector really have we had this kind of coordinated and consistent approach, going deep into countries' governance systems and stakeholder partnerships, and in a way that's underpinned by the negotiations at the COP itself, the Warsaw Framework for REDD+. So it's been a very good example of how a whole sector can come together and in a coordinated way to deliver climate results. In the GCF, we've already been supporting, building on the work that the UN REDD and the World Bank SDPF program have started with readiness work, continuing through our readiness window, some of the technical support to countries that helps them to continue building the effectiveness of their MRV systems, improving their reference levels, and ensuring that their stakeholder consultation processes are up to date. We have already been working in implementation of REDD+ strategies. I think it's important to note that before the GCF's results-based payments program started, there was already the World Bank's Carbon Fund, and Rosalind mentioned this. Not only have we got a REDD+ implementation project in Ghana, as she mentioned, we also have projects which are quite advanced in, for example, Madagascar and Lao PDR, where countries which have also received results-based finance from the Carbon Fund, where GCF's projects have contributed to the achievement of the results that led to those payments. So we're working in GCF not only in REDD+ through our results-based payments window, but in fact, more importantly in some cases, in the implementation phase that leads to those results-based finance. But in the context of our RBP program, Claudia already mentioned in Ecuador, we have important examples of how the forest and agricultural nexus have been addressed. She mentioned the example with Lavazza, with the coffee sector. We've also seen in Ecuador how our RBP program from GCF has been integrated into a very strong national program, the Pro Amazonia program, which also includes a GCF's project with UNDP in implementing the national strategy, and also a Jeff project that's doing something very similar. Am I? Can you still hear me? I can hear there's
yes.
some other.
Yes.
You can. I think there's some other.
I'm not sure what you see, but we can hear you.
Okay. So there's that example from Ecuador. We also have in Argentina, there's a results-based payments initiative, which is looking particularly at the livestock sector there, which is much more important in terms of the extent of land it covers than many other countries. And we're looking at through the RPP program in Argentina to develop forest and livestock land management plans across with a significant portion of the RBP proceeds there. And in Indonesia, we've been working, the proceeds there are being dispersed through the Indonesia Environment Fund. Within 1 year of the proceeds being delivered to Indonesia, $44 million worth of the proceeds were transferred through the Environment Fund's own national results-based finance initiative, channeling them to grassroots forest-dependent communities and farming communities across the country, which had demonstrated progress towards sustainable systems. Importantly, not requiring them to submit a local level change reports in carbon stocks and carbon changes, which would be extremely onerous task for them, but looking at proxy ways of demonstrating that progress towards mitigation and adaptation targets are being made. And so I think Indonesia's experience there and their modality is very transferable. And also focusing very much on the agriculture and forestry nexus and the impacts that these two sectors have on each other. Moving forward, we've now, with the board decision last month, we're able to move forward with some further results-based payments programs in countries that have been waiting for some time, and that includes, of course, Vietnam, which Dr. Tung talked about already, and also Papua New Guinea, Lao PDR, and Uganda. We'll be moving forward with, hopefully, those countries and developing proposals to issue results-based payments to them over the coming months. But one of the things that we're going to try to do with this next phase of the RBP program is to be, firstly, more proactive in exploring how we can leverage private sector investment through the RBP proceeds. Dr. Tung referred to the EUDR and also the context of certification in the forest product sector. I think these are two areas where we will be looking to work with countries that come to us with relative payment requests, because these are issues, of course, which are right at the forefront of the strategies of private sector concerns in the agricultural sector, and without really addressing the national strategies and approaches to move forward with looking at zero deforestation quantity strategies and certification that can enable those, we may miss out on some private sector investment that would otherwise we could leverage. And secondly, we'll be looking to put more of emphasis on the ability of the countries to record the impact of the investment of proceeds from results-based payments. As example, Indonesia is about to submit results for the period 2021 to 2022 to the UNFCCC, and that will include part of the period in which their GCF results-based payments proceeds from the first phase have been invested. But we currently don't have a clear way of identifying how the GCF RBP proceeds contributed to those national results. So that's something that we're going to be looking to work on over the coming months, looking at how we can help countries to track these proceeds and their impacts more reliably. I'll stop there, Mario, and hand back to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. We've reached the time we can stay in this room, but thank you very much to bring these insights from the Green Climate Fund, the financial arm of the Paris Agreement, and again showing that progress is taking place, payments are being made, strategies are being developed and implemented, and there are good prospects going forward. We know there are challenges, but I always want to counter the notion of challenges with the notion of recognizing the hard work that is being done by everyone and the progress that is producing. We have come to an end. What we will do, I'm going to wrap up in a moment. Between this session and the next one, we'll play at least one video for those who want to stay and watch. We'll start with Ecuador. I think that's the one we have the time to watch. If any one of you want to stay and continue to watch, you are welcome until the start of the next session. But now I really wanted to thank everyone who spoke. Julia, Claudia, Roslyn, Tung, Ben. Wanted to thank all of you. Sorry there wasn't any time for interaction, but we are here. If there are questions or comments that you have, be great to hear them out. And for me, really like the tweet. Of course, the synergy, agriculture and forest are of paramount importance. There is no climate solution without those. They are not the only solution, right? They are a complementary solution, but they are of fundamental importance. They're needed, they're doable, they are starting to happen, and they are real, and they bring good outcomes for people, for the planet, for food, for biodiversity. So it's really, despite all challenges, all barriers that you've heard and you'll keep hearing, this is a system, the forest and agriculture, that is worth engaging in, that is worth supporting, is worth financing, and it's shovel ready, despite all challenges. So I wanted to leave on a message of hope, and again, thank you everyone for being here at the Forest Pavilion for this event. Thank you.